4 men have been jailed after being found guilty of the murder of an 18-year-old man in Leicester Street. Rizwan Gul, 26, Mohammed Hansrod, 30, Israfeel Gul, 28, and Zakir Brant, 26, were all sentenced to life imprisonment Friday 11/11/2022 after being convicted on Tuesday, 9 November, of the murder of Abdirahim Mohamed following a trial at Leicester Crown Court. Mr. Mohamed died in hospital during the early hours of Thursday 9 September last year after being found in Melbourne Street, Leicester, on the previous evening with multiple stab wounds. Rizwan Gul, of no fixed address, was sentenced to serve a minimum of 28 years. Hansrod, of Dulverton Road, Leicester, was sentenced to serve a minimum of 28 years. Israfeel Gul, of New Road, Leicester, was sentenced to serve a minimum of 25 years. Brant, of Bale Road, Leicester, was sentenced to serve a minimum of 25 years. Daniel Pollard, 30, and Bavik Palmer, 26, were found guilty of the manslaughter of Mr. Mohamed following the trial. They were found not guilty of murder. Pollard, of Calder Road, Leicester, was sentenced to 14 years imprisonment. Palmer, of Bowling Green Street, Leicester, was also sentenced to 14 years imprisonment for manslaughter. At the sentencing, Palmer was also sentenced to a total of 2.5 years imprisonment to be served consecutively for separate unconnected offences of robbery, aggravated taking of vehicle without consent, supplying cocaine, supplying cannabis and possession of cannabis. The total sentence Palmer received was therefore 16 years and 6 months imprisonment. Ahad Ali Salim, 26, was found guilty of assisting an offender in connection with the incident. Mohammed Firaz Khan, 34, had previously pleaded guilty to assisting an offender. Salim, of Frederick Street, Leicester, was sentenced to 7 years imprisonment. He was also sentenced to an additional 8 months to be served consecutively for an invoked suspended sentence. The total sentence therefore received was 7 years and 8 months imprisonment. Khan, of Apollo Court, Leicester, was sentenced to 3 years imprisonment. At the sentencing, HHJ Spencer KC formally commended all officers involved in the investigation. Police had received a number of calls at around 11:44 p.m. on Wednesday 8 September last year, reporting a fight in the area of Melbourne Street. Officers attended where Mr. Mohamed was found. He had suffered from 7 stab wounds. The 18-year-old was taken to hospital by ambulance, but was sadly pronounced deceased at 1:21 a.m. on the morning of Thursday 9 September. The murder investigation was launched with a number of complex enquiries carried out, including forensic examinations, CCTV analysis and enquiries into phones and vehicle movements. During the investigation, detectives established Mr. Mohamed had been in the Melbourne Street area on 8 September. An Audi vehicle arrived in the area where a number of men got out of the vehicle and chased Mr. Mohamed. Following the attack, which was not captured on CCTV, the men made their way to Kent Street after losing the key to the Audi vehicle. The Ford Mondeo picked them up from the area. Members of the public came out to help Mr. Mohamed while paramedics arrived at the scene. Mr. Mohamed was taken to hospital by ambulance where he sadly died a short time later. From enquiries, it is believed the attack was carried out following a previous incident involving Mr. Mohamed and some of the defendants. As the investigation progressed, charges were made in connection with Mr. Mohamed's death. Senior Investigating Officer Detective Chief Inspector Tony Yarwood of the East Midlands Special Operations Unit said, "This was an extremely violent and planned attack on an 18-year-old man which took away his life. My thoughts remain with Mr. Mohamed's family at this time, who have suffered unimaginable pain and loss." 4 men have been convicted of Mr. Mohamed's murder, 2 men of manslaughter and 1 man of assisting an offender. 1 man pleaded guilty to assisting an offender. Following the trial, Abdul Sulman, 59, was found not guilty of murder and not guilty of manslaughter. Adam Brant, 29, and Katib Gul, 58, were found not guilty of assisting an offender. These convictions have only happened thanks to support from our communities and the work of our dedicated response and investigation teams. Public information was vital in helping us to progress our enquiries and to find those responsible for Mr. Mohamed's death. Thank you to those of you who worked with us and supported us during the investigation by providing this information to us. Our response and investigation team also worked tirelessly to ensure those responsible were brought before the courts. Following the initial incident, officers worked extremely long hours across a 17-day period, showing true professionalism and commitment to ensure that arrests and charges were made. My sincere thanks go to all who were involved. Thank you also to Prosecution Counsel James House KC and Dan Bishop for their work leading to and throughout the trial. Sadly, today's sentencing is yet another example of a young life being lost due to knife crime. Together we need to continue working together to stop this from happening. The family of Abdirahim Mohamed have made the following statement. It is difficult for us as a family to express our feeling of loss and the thought of never being able to see Abdirahim again, ever talk to him again or ever hold him again. Abdirahim died in the most horrendous of circumstances. As a family we are tormented at the thought of what he endured. He was outnumbered by men much older than him and was unable to defend himself. There was no one to rescue him. The thought of this is unbearable, and the horror of it haunts us. There is no comfort to be had, there is no consoling thought for us in the way that Abdirahim died. It is too painful for us to contemplate a future without Abdirahim. Our lives will never be the same again. For us, Abdirahim will never be forgotten, and he will always be remembered with boundless love. Our sympathies remain with the family and loved ones of Abdirahim Mohamed.